here today to show you the beginnings of my Nik the Booksmith challenge, and I thought that I'd take you along for the ride. Now I know we're not supposed to talk to anyone about it before we've actually made it, so I'm just going to film the process, and when I finish the actual book I will put it all up together, because I thought it was such an interesting process to go through this challenge that it would be a shame not to document the different stages from when you start to what you actually end up with, because it's such a journey. So the first thing is to tell you what the challenge is, and Nik has come up with her summer 30-day challenge, so you've got 30 days to complete it. And the question is, if you were a journal, what would it be? Now, it's a very simple question, but the answer is quite difficult, because when you actually sit down to think about that, it's quite a task. Now, Nik suggested that you do a brainstorming session, and so I sat down with my notepad and pen and I just wrote down all the things that I thought a journal would look like if it reflected my personality. And one of her suggestions was to start with your favourite colour, so that's what I did. The first thing I put down was my favourite colour, which is blue, and I went out from there and made quite a list of different things that reflected my personality. And that was quite difficult, because if you have a look at some of the things I've got down, I realised just how complex this issue is. To come to something that you have to simplify down and put into a book, it had to have pages, so it had to be some kind of book. And so I thought, well, the very first thing that stuck out to me is my very favourite fabrics. So I started with my favourite fabrics, and then I thought, well, what kind of cover am I going to make it into? So I thought I'd make a soft cover. So in keeping with one of Nik's favourite useful items, I went for a file folder, which is just one of these old green crystal files with the metal edges, and I cut the metal edge off, and I took my absolute favourite fabric, which is this gorgeous blue velvet. This one's actually ocean blue. It's got a sort of greeny blue to it, but it's really lovely to touch. I absolutely adore it, and I've always loved to wear velvet clothes. So velvet and white laces and the colour blue were the first few things that come to mind. So with that in mind, I made a cover, and I've come up with a wraparound one. So I'm still using the file folder, and I've cut that down, and I've actually glued on my velvet very first bit. So this is the first stage for me in making the cover. So I took the velvet and the file folder, and stage one is this lovely cover. So what do I do from there? From there I thought, well, this has to contain the very central of my personality, and depending on how old you are, you've probably got quite a history of things to go back over, and we change as we grow older on some of the things we like. We grow and we move into new areas and different things, but I thought the very core things stay with you all along, and they're the things that you probably should be looking at to focus on your personality, because that's always there, it never changes. And one of the things that's strong in my personality is animals, and I've always had an affinity with animals, all different kinds of animals. I care for wildlife, and I have lots of pets, and I always have had. So my house wouldn't be a home without cats and dogs and possums and all sorts of other little critters that come and go along the way. So I guess this book's going to have a lot of animals in it one way or another. So I thought, in keeping with the style that I like a vintage style. I'm very attracted to vintage photographs and images and things, so I went with this lovely image of a beautiful girl holding a gorgeous cat, and I just really can relate to that, so I thought that is the very essence of my personality. So that is the beginnings. And then I thought, after I'd written down a whole heap of different angles of my personality, the different things I like, I'll tell you a few so that you can see where I evolved from this beginning. So to start with, I had blue sapphires. I'm an archer. There's my star sign. My core values are empathy and kindness, which is relative to my love of animals. I love antique, I love vintage. I'm a writer and historian, so I absolutely love history, and my favourite elements of history are the White Mouse story and Florence Nightingale and Pollyanna and those kind of stories. I love Egyptology. I studied that at university, so I really have an affinity with the whole spirituality around Egyptology. So yeah, my huge love of animals. I love, spirit animals like the fox, the Arctic fox, the polar bear, shapeshifters, and that kind of mythology appeals to me. So art, paintings, calligraphy, poems, typed work. I love working with my typewriter, so I love that older style of typing. I love sewing, I love hand sewing. Of course there's a lot of stitching in my work, a lot of embroidery. I also like to put in watercolours and painting. And my namesake comes from the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey. Of course Penelope was one of the key ladies in the story, and she was a weaver, so I do have a love of weaving. I'm not all that musical, although I did study when I was at school. I played the harp, so I do love the harp. That appeals to me. I guess it's that spirituality and the love I have for cherubs and angels, and it all kinds of comes together. So what kind of papers would I be putting in this journal? There's another aspect. So I would choose like marbled paper. I love gorgeous marbled paper that Nik the Booksmith makes. I like the Edith Holden papers. They're classical, and of course the beautiful doilies. I love really antique vintage cotton doilies. So there'll be a lot of vintage sort of fabrics and laces and crocheted trims and things. I love crystals and dangles and beautiful things like that. I'll probably use piano paper. I'll probably have old letters. Beautiful Liberty of London prints in some lovely blue colours, which I really do love. There's a lovely red rose there. So they'll probably make pockets or tabs. I love these gorgeous trims with the blue and silver. Make lovely pockets. There's a gorgeous doily which I really like. Blue one. So really all of these things, because I like them, I think they do reflect my personality. That's my favourite coloured velvet, which is a beautiful rich blue. So that's a lovely pocket. I've also got this lovely piece of crochet trim. I'll probably be using that in there. And some gorgeous trims from Boho Daydreams, which are so beautiful. I mean, look at that, isn't that gorgeous? I really love those, so I would say that that is me. This is my absolute favourite fabric I picked out for bedroom curtains, so I guess that'll go in there somewhere, because that's part of my personality, all the beautiful embroidered flowers and the blues. And then there's this lovely piece of gorgeous trim as well. So I may or may not use all of these things. I may evolve and change it as it goes along, but I just thought this is a spot that I can bounce off, and I probably would have taken up the whole 30 days to think about this, and then I would have no time to actually make it. And the thing is that as much as you'd like to try and make something a bit out of the box and a bit different, you have to think about what your personality really is and what you're trying to achieve. So if it's just a reflection of you, I don't think you need to go to those really different styles unless it is part of your personality. I like to create all kinds of things, so the styles that I make are generally suited to the person that I'm making it for. I rarely ever make it for me, so I don't tend to use my personality things. I choose the things that I think the other person would like. So it's a bit of a challenge to actually turn that around on myself and sit down and work out, you know, what would I like, not as a perfect, not so much as what I would like to use, but what would reflect me as a journal. I mean, what would I be if I was a journal? That's the really tricky part of it. It's very hard to pin that down to, you know, one particular style, or you know, people are very complex. We have lots of sides, we have different likes and dislikes, and we might be very eclectic. We might have very contradictory things that we like. So the pages that come within the pages of your life might actually reflect something different altogether. So we'll see where this journey goes, and I really hope that you follow along and enjoy this as much as I am enjoying making it and pulling it together. It's actually been quite a fun challenge, so I really take my hat off to Nik for coming up with that one. Thanks very much, Nik, and we'll see you at the end of this journey. Bye for now.